to continue with this assembly, I'll take the subassembly I made of the backbone. I'm going to go ahead and add the other parts, and then I'll resave it with a new number. So then I'll still have my subassembly from that backbone. I went ahead and added these other pieces on the left side. Let me show you how to add the pieces on the right side. So essentially, I've got these two pieces, and I need to get them constrained to the frame. So let's go ahead. Go to assembly, insert components, and that one there is part 215. Let's hold up on that one. Let's get the other one. That's 213. There we go. And that's good orientation. If not, use these tools to rotate around to get it to closer to its final resting place. Otherwise, you'll be fighting the thing the whole time. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So a couple of things that we want to do is I need some planes on that. Let me go ahead and open that up. And let's look at our original planes, that one there. That's actually what I need. So back to my assembly. So again, that's why I always keep my other models open so I can just quickly flip that back to them. Sorry. Now in order to attach that here, because this is at an angle. Now my original sketch, I had this set at 20, that was a 20-degree angle off the vertical. So in my, let's go ahead and add this part to it. So in order to attach this to there, a couple things. Let's go ahead and just stick it on there. So I can use, with these notch tubes, I can use that. If you click on that notch part and click on the tube, it will let you constrain it. SolidWorks is pretty smart like that. It will let you constrain that. And that's just, I got a lot left to do, but at least it's attached to the tube that way. Let's locate it. How far forward do we want it to be? So where is it along this tube? And what I'm trying to do is keep it as far forward as I can for strength purposes, but not interfere with that notch right there. So what I will do is on this tube here, I'm going to, let's go over to that. I wonder if I have that one open. $212. Yeah, that's that piece. So let me open up that part, and I'm going to need some planes to work with. I think I'm going to just make a new plane. So off of this back surface, try that again. There you go. Make sure you got that surface. And I know that this is 15.5 inches long, but I obviously can't attach it right there. So the question is, where do I want that to be attached? So what does that look like at 15? That's still 14. What about like 14.5? Then I can always change it as I go. Let's try that and see if that's going to work. Go back to our assembly. Now, I know there's a lot happening here, but I've been fiddling with this for a while, so it's easier, a little bit easier for me to follow what's happening. I know what I can do is turn off some of these. I have a lot of planes active right now. You'll have to periodically just take a break and get rid of some of those planes. Okay. So what I need is a plane on this tube, so I can line it up with that one. I already went to the other one. Let's see what I did on this guy. so that they can match up. So if I look at my, let's see, when I constructed this part, remember I started at this joint right there. There's my right plane. What I need is I need a work plane that's up here by the notch that I can work with. So I can just do an offset, take that plane and offset it over. What I ended up doing was I offset this plane over. So see where I just need a reference to go by, and it doesn't really matter where it is, just so I have a reference to mate it to. Try to get something in between there, so I just offset that over, what was that distance? 6.25. I just offset it until I found a number that was reasonable. Again, I just need a reference point so I can constrain it. All of those can be changed at any time. Now again, I know I got a lot of stuff turned on here, just bear with me. So what I have now to work with is I have that plane and I have that plane on the tube, and what I'm going to do is mate those two planes, and that will pull this bar forward and it'll line up with that one. I can always change that. I'm designing this from scratch. It's my design. I can make it be whatever I want it to be, but I need it to be consistent and I need to have control over this. I did something wrong there. Let's check. Let me check my mates, make sure I don't have something weird going on. Nope, that looks fine. Okay, I probably just clicked something wrong. So let's come back in here. Click on my two planes. There we go. Be persistent, you'll get it. Alright, so now it's attached and it's located, but I don't have any control over this angle, so I need some control there. So I need to look at this model of that right tube. Is that the right side? Yeah, the right side, which is part number 212. I have a list in front of me that I can always fall back on. See how you can click on that part, you can see it's 212. So let me go back. Oops, go back to my detail there. And what I need for this is let's look at this top plane. And the right plane. Oops, not the right plane. Front plane. Okay, let's go back to our assembly. Let's turn off. I know this is getting to be out of control. I'm going to need those in a minute. Okay, so I got to get this angle. So what I need to do is off of this right side tube, I need an angled plane that I can use to constrain this plane. So remember, this plane is attached to this tube, and there's also a plane that's attached to that tube, which is my right side tube. So I need to rotate a plane. So see this thing that's labeled front plane, I can use that as a reference, but I'm going to need an axis, because anytime you want to create a rotated plane, you have to have an axis. So if I click on that tube, yeah, there we go. So see that blue line? Okay, so let's create a new plane. Bear with me. I'll click on that front plane and I'll click on that axis. So it's got, oops, I already had the axis. Do it again. I want to make a work plane that's based off of that front plane and that axis, and then click here where it says angle and put an angle in there. Now my ballpark from my sketch that I started with was 20 degrees. And don't worry about it flying up in the air like that. It'll be okay if we can adjust that. So let's come in here now. If you bring your cursor in there to see that double-headed arrow, you can bring that down bring this down so it kind of fits more of what we're trying to do. So if you see what I have here is this plane I just created, that's at the 20-degree angle. That's that plane attached to that tube. So I'm going to mate that. Mate those two planes. That'll pull it into position. And that should be fully constrained. Now again, just bear with me. We got a lot happening here. Let's get a top-down view of this because I'll show you what I found when I took a good look at this. So here's my right side. This doesn't line up with the center of that tube. So I'd like for this bar that's attached here to be vertical. It doesn't have to be, it just makes everything easier. So I figured out on this one how to get those lined up. And I'll show you how I did that. What I did was come in here for this plane that I created. I'm going to edit that. So where I made it 20 degrees, again, it's kind of seat of the pants, and you can do it with math, but what I ended up finding out by just massaging it a little at a time, it's 21.2 degrees. And now if it doesn't update, click on this thing, it'll swing, see how it swung that around. So that will let that line up. Again, if I come to my top view, you see everything is nice and lined up. So it's nice and vertical and square. Now that's just part of what I'm shooting for here. It doesn't have to be that perfect, but it does make the frame nice, makes it easier to manufacture, makes it look good, makes all the parts fit together. So let's clean up some of these planes and axes that we have. Don't need all that anymore. Alright, so lastly I have to add this back tube that goes on here. So let's go ahead and insert that piece, and that's the number 215A part. And again, I wouldn't put it in there until I get it rotated to the orientation. Oh, I got lucky there. To more closely match to the orientation, and that's the way that I want that to appear on the assembly. Alright, I think what I ended up doing, it worked pretty well, is the first thing I did was I used that concentric constraint. If you click on the inside of that cutout and the OD of that tube there, that'll just, I mean, it's pretty basic, but it is stuck to that outside of that tube, which that helps a lot. Okay, so the next thing I did, now again, your design is going to be different, so you got to use whatever you can figure out to work. So I'm going to mate that surface to that surface. That's fine. No, it's not lining up yet. I know that because there's a little bit of a problem. I'll show you here in a second. So now what do I do with this? Well, because I talked about wanting these tubes to be vertical, that's exactly what I'm going to do, is make that tube vertical. If you click on that, that's 215A, so let's find that 215. And what I need, oh, that's the plane I need right there. I need that plane, and I can use that to help me constrain it back to my assembly. And so all I have to do is, there's a vertical plane and there's a vertical plane. So if I just mate those two vertical planes, something didn't go right there. Let's try. Sometimes point of view. Oh, I may have accidentally clicked on the wrong plane. That one. There we go. Okay. Now let's look at what we have. Looks pretty good, actually. If you look really close, you'll see it doesn't quite line up. You see that little bit, which you're probably never going to notice. But I'll show you how to do that the right way. It's really not that difficult. Let's come up here and let's put an axis on that tube. And put an axis on that one right there. And now let's just measure that distance. So go to evaluate, measure, and then click on those two and see what it tells you. 10.31 is that vertical distance. Now if we go back to this tube right here, let's see, that was my, oh yeah, first sketch, I think, sketch 1. I got that length at 10.29. I thought that was right. Apparently not. I didn't quite have it. And remember I told you it's kind of an iteration where you got to work your way through that. If I change that to 10.31, let's see what happens. And let's go back to our assembly. You want to let it update. And let's zoom in there and see what we got. It's, as far as I can see, it's pretty perfect. It might be off by by the second or third decimal, but it looks nice and symmetrical. Everything is constrained. So at that point, I've got pretty much everything I need, with the exception of the steering neck, which I'll do that next.